It's time again for Northwestern Outdoors Radio, the show covering fishing, hunting, and all sorts of outdoor recreation and destinations right here in the region you live and play in. Northwestern Outdoors is brought to you every week by Max Lure Company, makers of the world-famous wedding ring spinner, by Loophole, America's Optics Authority, and by Sportsman's Warehouse, America's premier outfitter. Northwestern Outdoors is also sponsored by Wallowa County in Northeast Oregon, where you'll find both nature and fun. By Chad's Coastwide Sports Fishing, offering you the affordable Canadian fishing trip of a lifetime. And by Camp Chef, the way to cook outdoors. So grab your fishing rod or hunting gear, load up the boat or lace up your boots, and let's head outdoors with your host, John Cruz.
We start off the show with a very interesting story out of Oregon, a state many associate with conservation, though the decisions the Beaver State has been making as of late have little to do with conserving anything but dollars. A case in point is Oregon's decision to sell off the Elliott State Forest. The land board made the decision to sell the 82,500-acre forest to the Lone Rock Timber Management Company and the Cow Creek Band of the Umpqua Tribe. Conservation organizations, as well as hunters and anglers, strongly oppose the decision because the public will be likely locked out or have to pay a hefty price to recreate in this area that is home to Roosevelt elk, black-tailed deer, wild salmon, steelhead, and cutthroat trout. Ironically, the actions of a few environmental organizations and anarchists may have spurred this sale. In an article written for the Oregon Outdoor Council, Dominic Aiello points out the state has to make a profit off this state forest, and for years they did so through sustainable timber harvests. However, timber sales have plummeted over the last 10 years due to protests by anarchists and repeated lawsuits filed by environmental groups like the Cascadia Wildlands, Oregon Wild, and Earth First, making the forest not only unprofitable, but a financial burden. And now, thanks to the actions of these preservationist organizations, it would appear we, as outdoors enthusiasts, are going to lose out in a big way. A very sad story indeed. Turning to other topics, let's talk about the show this week. We're going to start off by chatting with our friend and sponsor, Chad Calder. He is the owner of Chad's Coastwide Sports Fishing, and he's going to tell you about the affordable, all-inclusive fishing vacations he offers out of Port Hardy, British Columbia. I got to go fishing with Chad last summer there on Vancouver Island, and I've got to tell you, it was the best saltwater fishing experience of my lifetime. After we talk to Chad, Bob Loomis with Max Lure Company will tell you about a great jig you can use this winter to catch steelhead, and then we'll dive into the topic of grizzly bears. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and National Park Service is taking public comments about a plan to reintroduce grizzly bears into the North and Central Cascade Mountains of Washington State, and up to 200 bears may be wandering the forests and mountains of this ecosystem from the Canadian border to Snoqualmie Pass at Interstate 90. As you might imagine, this is a controversial plan, and we'll share both sides of this story with you. We'll first talk to Wayne Caseworm. He is a grizzly bear biologist who works for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and he oversaw a similar and successful grizzly bear reintroduction program in the Cabinet Mountains of northern Montana and Idaho. After that, we'll talk to some of the individuals living in this area where grizzlies may make their first reappearance in decades. Keith Gaynor is a Chelan County Commissioner who is not in favor of this plan, and Cliff Courtney is a longtime outfitter and the owner of the Stehekin Valley Ranch in North Cascades National Park, who will also express some valid concerns about this issue. But before we talk about BC fishing and grizzly bears reintroduction, it's time for our weekly edition of Sportsman Spotlight. This week, Matt and Tom address a bill that could help manage Washington State's growing wolfpack population. Sportsman Spotlight is sponsored by Chad's Coastwide Sports Fishing. Find out more about his affordable fishing vacations at coastwidesportsfishing.com.
This is Sportsman Spotlight with Matt and Tom. 19 wolf packs and growing in Washington State, 16 of them in 4 counties along the Canadian border. House Bill 1872 would remove gray wolves from the Endangered Species Act, but just in those counties where number of attacks on livestock keep rising.
What this would do, I think, is take the first step toward how are we going to handle wolves when they're delisted statewide. It makes sense to me to do it in a small area, and we can find what works, find out what doesn't. We'll make mistakes, but it would be better to me to fine-tune that new status on 4 counties counties rather than the whole state, and hopefully we'll get it right. And then when the state's ready to delist, they'll have a model. I think that we've got to figure out something that works, though, because we've got one small area that's disproportionately impacted, and it's a hot issue up there, and I think they've got interest in solving it. I'm looking for a balanced approach on this thing, and I don't know what exactly it looks like. I mean, that's going to be subject to negotiations. I'll be meeting with some of those folks. If they've got ideas, I'm really open to them. But we do need to take this seriously, that we've got to do something in these areas that have been pretty well overrun.
Let's take a look at one of Washington's neighboring states that have been impacted by growing wolf numbers. An article in Capital Press reports that hunting is resulting in a slow but steady decline of Idaho's wolf population. The overall wolf population has stabilized since state management and hunting began in 2011, according to Idaho Department of Fish and Game spokesman Mike Keckler. Thanks for listening to Sportsman Spotlight with Matt Rice.
A quality and affordable fishing adventure is waiting for you off Vancouver Island with Chad's Coast-Wide Sports Fishing. Located in Port Hardy, British Columbia, you can drive or fly to your all-inclusive guided fishing vacation. Whether you're after big salmon, heart-fighting halibut, or a cooler full of red snapper and lingcod, you can catch it all here. Better yet, your lodging, meals, and fish processing are all taken care of. Want one more reason to go? The price. With the Canadian dollar exchange rate where it is right now, your U.S. dollar goes further. Space is limited, so go to coastwidesportsfishing.com to book your trip. That's coastwidesportsfishing.com for an incredible BC fishing adventure.
This is the time of year to get out and cook out. So make your next meal sizzle with Camp Chef, the brand known for quality outdoor cooking equipment. To eat like a king on your next adventure, go to campchef.com or visit your local sporting goods store and get cooking. Camp Chef, the way to cook outdoors.
Then just as we were about to give up and go home, I felt a tug on my rod like none I'd known. It was ominous, like a monster from the deep. I say, this is the one I believe I'll keep.
Welcome back to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. We are talking to our old friend Chad Calder. He is the owner of Chad's Coast-Wide Sports Fishing out of Port Hardy, BC. And we've caught up to him again at the Central Washington Sportsman Show in Yakima. Chad, great to have you back on the air.
Oh, I love this interview. It's going to be a good one.
I know it will be, because you offer some fantastic fishing, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Most of you who go on ocean charters, you go for one species. You'll go on a salmon charter, you'll go for a bottom fish trip, or maybe you'll go for albacore tuna, but it's just one species and that's all you're focusing on. The great thing I loved about the trip I took with you last summer, and what everybody gets to enjoy, is you're going after 3-4 species every day.
You're exactly right. We fish for every species every single day. So in the mornings, we normally try to knock off our salmon, and then right just before the noon, 11 o'clock in the morning, we'll roll into getting our halibut, and then we'll finish off the day with all our lingcod and rockfish species.
And sometimes, folks, the fishing is so good, you're going to have everything done before noon. I had one such day with one of your guys, Brian Ramish, where we hooked into 10 salmon by 7:30. We got our halibut real quick, and then we were trolling, which was a new experience for me, for lingcod. And we were catching lingcod, we were catching bottomfish, we were hooking more salmon that, of course, we were releasing, but it was just an absolute hoot. Best fishing day of my life.
Well, that's one of the beauties about fishing with us in Port Hardy is you can get a lot of the species that you're targeting unconventionally. So we fish for a lot of our halibut in shallow water, a lot of our rockfish, believe it or not, in some shallow water, and our lingcod as well. And all our salmon fishing, unlike some of the other places you may have fished, all our salmon fishing is done in 40 to 70 feet of water as well. So a lot of shallow water fishing, which is great for people that don't want to haul halibut and etc. up from the deep.
Let's talk about getting to Port Hardy. 2 ways to do it. If you're in the Northwest, you can go towards Vancouver, take the ferry to Nanaimo, and just drive on up. Or you can fly right into Port Hardy, too, can't you?
Yeah, so majority of our clients do exactly that, John. They drive, and the reason being is it's not a little bit of fish, it's a lot of fish. And getting your fish on the flights can be at sometimes a bit of a chore. Fishing with us, package-wise, a group of 3, you're looking at between 350 and upwards of 600 pounds, 700 pounds of fish even. And in our packages, it's all-inclusive. So we include all the custom processing and packaging of all that fish. Plus, we provide all the proper documentation and paperwork for you to travel with your fish home.
And let's talk about exactly what your all-inclusive vacation is, because I was really impressed with. You hold costs down, but you offer a quality experience by putting people in one of two hotels. It's right at the marina that you operate out of, either the Glen Lyon Inn or the Quarterdeck. They're both very good motels, and they both have restaurants attached to them. And with the food, you've got food on board for breakfast, you got food on board for lunch, and then you're so clever by what you did with your diner's card. Tell our listeners about that.
Yeah, so because we're fully all-inclusive once you arrive in Port Hardy, and we do include your meals, we have what they call a dine-out all-inclusive. So we give you diner's cards, your group, whoever wants to go with your group, and you go to one of the 5 pubs and restaurants that are listed on our diner's card, and you simply give them that card and you order anything you want off of any of those menus at any given time. So there's no dinner bell with us, and you're not eating with groups that you don't know, etc., etc. You can eat whenever you want, and you can go back twice if you want. And the one great thing about it is you can have a different dining experience every night because there's so many different places to choose from.
We did, but I got to tell you, what was it, Sporty's? Is that the place? That was a very good restaurant. I enjoyed that a lot. So let's talk about the other part of the all-inclusive package that you have there. In addition to the fishing, in addition to the food and the lodging, the shipping, the fish processing and the shipping is all covered too.
That's correct, John. So we don't clean any fish at our dock. We have a certified processor, which is very important to note, that can actually process your fish down to 1.5 pound fillets, and then it's vacuum packed, flash frozen, and then divided equally amongst your group and boxed for your travel home. And that is included in our prices. So the product is superior to most other places simply because we have a certified processor that does it.
Tell you what, it is now February, and I am still enjoying some of the halibut and salmon I caught fishing with you last June. And folks, it tastes great. That's the great thing about flash freezing it and vacuum sealing it. It stays good for a long time. Let's talk about limits because, like you said, you're going to be bringing home a lot of fish. So let's talk about daily limits and then possession limits.
Okay, John. So in Canada, no matter where you fish, I'm going to start with the halibut. You can take home and travel with 2 halibut per person. That's your possession limit. One of the halibut can be up to 133 centimeters, and the other halibut can be up to 83 centimeters. It works out to about a 65-pound fish, and then one that's about 15 to 18 pounds. We'll move on to lingcod. You can keep 3 lingcod a day, so a possession limit of 6. Rockfish, you can keep 3 a day, a possession limit of 6. With one of those can be a yellow eye rockfish each day. And now we'll move on to salmon, which is 2 kings per day and a possession limit of 4, and 2 silvers per day with a possession limit of 4. So that's 8 salmon per person.
You're listening to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. We're talking with Chad Calder. He is the owner of Chad's Coastwide Sports Fishing, offering all-inclusive saltwater vacations out of Port Hardy, BC. We've caught up to him at the Central Washington Sportsman Show in Yakima. If you hear some background noise, that's what it is. But let's talk about a few more things when it comes to fishing with you. I love the boats, and I love the fact that it's just going to be your party in each boat. It's not a party boat. You're not sharing it with 60 other people. Tell our listeners about that experience and about the great Grady Whites you fish out of.
Yeah, so the Grady Whites are 25-foot sport bridges. What's nice about them is the 9.6 beam and the twin 200 4-stroke power, and they all have onboard washrooms. But the layout is superior to most other vessels. They're incredibly comfortable to fish out of.
And they're very wide. I love the room that you have in the aft portion of each boat because you got plenty of room to fight fish, and it's going to be quite often, folks, that 2 of you are going to be fighting fish at the same time. Doubles are very common here. So you got the Grady Whites. We've got the great fishing experience. I guess we probably need to talk about the packages you offer and the price.
Okay, we offer 3 and 4 day, full day, all-inclusive fishing packages. So we list our prices. It's important to remember, John, we list our prices in Canadian dollars, and what's nice about our U.S. customers is it's about a 30% savings on our prices right now. So the conversion is favorable, to say the least, for the U.S. customers. So our 3-day package, 4 nights for 2 people on the boat is $2,895 Canadian per person, and if there's 3 on a boat, it's $2,295 per person. And then our 4-day, 5-night accommodation package is $3,695 per person for 2 on a boat, and then the 3-person per boat is $2,795 per person. And once again, those are Canadian prices, so it's about a 30% savings on that right now.
Well, folks, trust me, this is a quality fishing outfit. I had the time of my life when I got to fish with Chad and his crew last summer, and these packages are great deals, especially with the Canadian dollar the way it is right now versus the American dollar. One last thing we need to talk about is timing. When it comes to the size of the salmon and when it comes to the quantity of the salmon, let's talk about June versus August.
It's a great question, John. So the June fishery, when we open on June 9th, the June fishery is smaller kings and lots of ground fish. So the kings are going to be between 15 and 25 pounds mostly. And, of course, it's the beginning of the season, so there's lots and lots of ground fish fishing, lingcod, red snapper, halibut, etc. As we transition into July, all that happens with the salmon fishers, we start seeing more silvers show up, and the kings get a little bit bigger. But there's normally a few less of them. And of course the ground fish fishing, halibut, red snapper, lingcod, still remains fantastic. As we move into August, actually our fishery takes a bit of a dynamic change. It becomes more of a hunt for a 1 or 2 large kings. Sometimes you get 5 or 6 in a day, of quite a bit more silvers, and the bottom fishing, of course, is still the same. So the real difference between the June and the August fishery is the kings. The kings just get bigger as you move into August, but there's just a few less of them.
All right, well, we are out of time, but folks, if you want to book a trip with Chad's Coastwide Sports Fishing, you'll want to do it quick because he fills up. It's that good of an operation. Even though he has 6 boats, they fill up. And I remember last year, he was taking calls on the docks, people begging to come up and go fishing with him, and he had to turn them away. So now's the time to book. The website, coastwidesportsfishing.com. It's coastwidesportsfishing.com for an incredible saltwater fishing experience out of Port Hardy, BC. Chad, thanks as always.
Thanks very much, John, and we'll do another interview a little later on with the fishing report.
Looking forward to it.
You're back with more of the great outdoors on Northwestern Outdoors Radio with John Cruz.
It's time for another Max Minute.
Fish on!
Brought to you every week by Max Lure Company. With us today, Bobby Loomis, the sales director for Max Lure Company. And we're talking about a lure I'm pretty familiar with. I've been fishing this lure for at least 15 years for steelhead in the Columbia when it's open. And it'll work right now on the Snake River, too. It's the Rock Dancer Jig. Bobby, tell our listeners more about it.
Well, the Rock Dancer Jig, John, is kind of a mainstay up here in the upper Columbia for our steelhead and salmon fisheries as far as fishing under float. Works fantastic because of the different colors and the way the jig's designed. It's bucktail with a heavier thread on top tying it on that you can actually put scent on. So it gives you a little bit larger, beefier profile than your basic steelhead jig. So it's been fantastic up here in the upper river.
So when I first started fishing these, and I'm talking, actually it's been more than 15 years, I'm talking back in the 90s, people were tossing these big rock dancers out there like half ounce, but it seems like people float fishing these days, they've gone to a lower profile, quarter ounce, even eighth ounce.
They've changed because, it's the evolution of a lure. And when you talk about an evolution, 15, 18 years ago, they didn't have smaller profile jigs. Older marabou jigs were large profile jigs. Things have gradually gone down in size. Therefore, you get this evolution or change. So yeah, going to smaller bucktails, it's still going to work.
And one other thing about the bucktail too, folks, it's perfect to put a coon shrimp on. Unlike marabou, which just kind of makes a big mess, with this bucktail, you can put a coon shrimp on there and you are in business.
Absolutely. In fact, it not only works well up here under a float, but one of our largest portions of that business is people using it now for what we call twitching, where they're casting them and catching coho and steelhead late in the year.
Well, we'll save that for another time. Meanwhile, look for the Rock Dancer at a sporting goods store near you or online at maxlure.com.
Sportsman's Warehouse is America's premier outfitter and has the quality gear you need for hunting, fishing, camping, and more. Our knowledgeable and friendly staff will help you find the right product so you get the most out of your time in the field or on the water. In addition to stocking superior clothing and outdoor equipment, we offer in-store events and seminars so you can enjoy a successful adventure. With over 70 stores located in the United States, it's easy to find a Sportsman's Warehouse store near you. Find out more at sportsmanswarehouse.com.
John Cruz here with Northwestern Outdoors. We've got 2 sportsman shows to tell you about. We're going to be at both, and if you drop by our booth, you've got a chance to win a camp stove from Camp Chef and a $100 gift certificate from Max Lure Company. What shows are they? They're the Wenatchee Valley Sportsman Show. That one's taking place February 24th through the 26th at the Town Toyota Center, and the Central Oregon Sportsman Show. This one's going to be at the Deschutes County Fairgrounds in Redmond, Oregon, March 2nd through the 5th. Both are going to be great events, lots to see, lots to do. Don't miss them. The Wenatchee Valley Sportsman Show and the Central Oregon Sportsman Show. We'll see you there. Back with Northwestern Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. We're attending an open house in Kashmir, Washington, where the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the National Park Service is sharing information about a potential plan to reintroduce grizzly bears into the North Cascades of Washington State. With us here to tell us more about this and about where it's already been done is Wayne Caseworm. He is a grizzly bear biologist stationed in the Idaho-Montana area. Welcome to the show, Wayne.
Thank you, John.
So, Wayne, let's talk about this. This North Cascades ecosystem basically stretches from the Canadian border through North Cascades National Park and all the way down to Interstate 90, which includes the Alpine Lakes Wilderness area. Why do we want to put grizzlies here?
The North Cascades represents one of the few places left where we can have grizzly bears in the lower 48 states. I mean, one of the easy answers to that would be we have an Endangered Species Act that mandates that we recover bears. But there are certainly other reasons just in terms of having bears in some of these places. They were here before, and we are trying to recover natural populations of bears that have been here in the past.
There's a lot of people that are concerned, some even scared, about the potential of reintroducing these top-tier predators into the North Cascades, but you've actually had experience. I understand this has only been done one time before, where grizzly bears have been physically relocated or transplanted in an area. Tell us about your experience and where it took place.
So where I work is in northwest Montana, a little community called Libby, and the mountain range is known as the Cabinet Mountains. We did some research in there in the 1980s and determined that that population had declined to the point where we were probably into the single-digit number of bears remaining. We went to our community. We had a long conversation with our community about the future of bears in the Cabinet Mountains. We came to an agreement where we would look at putting some bears back in there. Many of the members of the community did not want to see grizzly bears disappear. There was a history of grizzly bears there, and many of the members of the community had experienced grizzly bears. So we advanced a program where we put in 4 grizzly bears initially, all young females, as a test of the program. We had at least one of those bears that was successful, that reproduced, and her offspring reproduced as well, and we could document generations of bears. That was in the 1990s. By the time we got to 2005, we started introducing more bears because we had demonstrated the success of the program, that it can work when we put females in there. They can reproduce.
So let me ask you a question here. Where do you get your bears from?
Okay, and the bears that we got initially were actually from British Columbia, from the North Fork of the Flathead River. But the bears we've gotten subsequently, and we've moved a total of 19 bears over the entire length of the program, have all come from the Flathead River drainage, around the edge of the Bob Marshall Wilderness and around the edge of Glacier National Park.
So the math would be you've introduced 19. There was probably 5, 6, 8 before. So that's 25 bears. Is there more than that in your neck of the woods?
There are more bears because I'm referencing the Cabinet Mountains. To the north of Libby and the Yak River drainage, we probably have another 25 bears. So that total population is around 50 bears.
Well, that's an improvement. But let's ask the next question. And that comes down to conflicts between humans and bears. Has that been an issue in the Cabinet Mountains?
It has not been much of an issue. I think, anytime we talk about transplanting animals, though, there's something that everyone needs to remember. Those two things are, they don't all stay where you put them, and they don't all live. And so there's a risk that when you move animals, there's the risk of something going wrong. And we have had a couple of animals leave and go back home. We've also had an animal or two that were killed along the way by people in self-defense. But in terms of anybody ever getting injured by bears, either bears that we have placed there or the native bears in the Cabinet Yaak, in the 35 years that I've been working there, we have no documented injuries by grizzly bears in the Cabinet Yaak.
Let's talk about livestock. Let's talk about sheep. Let's talk about cattle. I know with the wolf reintroduction, especially here in the Northwest, when we're talking about Oregon and Washington, that's been a real issue for ranchers. Grizzly bears and predation upon livestock, is it the same level of predation as you see with wolves or not?
Grizzly bears are probably less of an issue on livestock than on our wolves, but I don't mean to say it doesn't occur. Typically on the east side of Wyoming, the east side of Yellowstone Park in Wyoming, we experience losses for cattle that are possibly in the range of 25 to 50 cattle that are killed per year. On the east side of the Northern Continental Divide population, the Glacier Park Bob Marshall group of bears, we probably experience at least 25 losses of livestock per year. It does occur, but there is a program where when those animals are killed, bears can be relocated or in some cases removed from those population, and we authorize lethal removal of those bears at times as well.
You're listening to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. We're talking to Wayne Caseworm. He's a grizzly bear biologist with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service about the reintroduction of grizzly bears into northwest Montana and northern Idaho, where he works, as well as a proposed program that would reintroduce grizzly bears into the North Cascades of Washington State. Wayne, there's 4 options that are on the table here. Why don't you go ahead and take our listeners through them?
Okay, there are 4 options or 4 alternatives within this environmental impact statement. And with environmental impact statements, there's always a no-action alternative. And so that basically means that we're not going to put any bears in, that we would continue to manage for bear habitat and essentially hope for natural recovery of the population. The second alternative is, as I'll characterize it, as a go-slow approach, in that we would move approximately 10 bears into the area. We would monitor them for 2 years and then make a decision about going forward after that. The third option is to move 5 to 7 bears per year to get to a population of 25 initially, and then essentially sit back and watch how that population goes. We would probably add a few bears along the way for genetics purposes as that population hopefully grows.
And that's essentially what you've done in the Cabinet Mountains.
And that is correct, is that we continue to add a few bears periodically in the Cabinet Mountains to help that population grow as well as address the genetics issue.
And then there's one more option. I'm guessing you're going to call this the go fast one, and I think this has a lot of people potentially concerned.
Well, the purpose of an EIS is to provide a range of alternatives. So we have a no action, we have a go slow, we have what I'm going to call a go fast alternative. And that would mean moving in 5 to 7 bears per year until we get to that population of about 200 bears. That's still going to take a while. The sources of bears, you have to consider that. It's not like we can go out and get a whole bunch of bears from any population. The most I think we could expect is 5 to 10 bears per year, even working with 2 source populations.
One other question, where are they going to be released in the North Cascades? Because the area that we talked about here includes some places that are very popular with hikers, especially the Alpine Lakes Wilderness. We've got areas that have some agriculture in terms of orchards in them. So where are these bears going to be released so we can minimize the human conflict and livestock conflict?
And so the goal is to put these bears in remote areas. And so we're looking at some very remote areas inside the park, as well as south of the highway in some remote wilderness areas. Our program would involve using a helicopter to transport these bears into some remote areas to release them. We're not looking to have these bears run into hikers or that sort of thing. That's not the goal. But at the same time, we want to put some bears in there to try and recover this population.
All right. The public comment period is open through March 14th. And you're going to hear other opinions on this show as well. There's always 2 sides to any story. But this is kind of a big deal. I mean, we are looking at bringing a top-tier predator that has not been seen for decades in the North Cascades. And it can be a good thing or, in some people's opinions, not a good thing. You need to go ahead and express your opinion. So the folks at the National Park Service and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service can hear it. They need to hear it. Here's what you want to do. I can give you a long-winded website, but I'm not going to. Just go to Grizzly Bear North Cascades EIS. If you Google that, I guarantee you're going to find it. Look for the link where you can submit public opinion, submit it online, make your opinion known. This is a big issue for us here in the Northwest. Wayne, thanks for breaking it down for us and giving us an example where it's worked here in the Northwest too on Northwestern Outdoors Radio.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Leupold Gold Ring Optics are built to perform at the highest level, shot after shot, year after year. Our rifle scopes, binoculars, spotting scopes, rangefinders, and more always come through when you need them most. That's why our American-built products have a lifetime guarantee. Or as we like to say here at Leupold, they are guaranteed for a lifetime of performance, not a lifetime of replacement. Find out more about our top quality gear and our lifetime guarantee at Leupold.com. Leupold, America's optics authority.
This is the time of year to get out and cook out. So make your next meal sizzle with Camp Chef, the brand known for quality outdoor cooking equipment. To eat like a king on your next adventure, go to campchef.com or visit your local sporting goods store and get cooking. Camp Chef, the way to cook outdoors.
Welcome back to Northwestern Outdoors. I'm John Cruz. We told you earlier in the show about a potential plan by the federal government to reintroduce grizzly bears into north central Washington. Well, there's some opposition to that, especially at the local government level. With us here to tell us more about why there's some concerns about reintroducing these bears is Chelan County Commissioner Keith Gaynor. Keith, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you.
Keith, I understand that the commissioners, all three commissioners, don't have a real high opinion of this plan to reintroduce grizzly bears in the North Cascades. Why is that?
Well, you have to keep in mind the area that we're talking about. And in Chelan County, if the bears all stay up in the North Cascades, it'd be different than if they were right in our backyard in Chelan County. But that is a possible occurrence. I mean, they do have a tremendous range. So, I mean, there is a definite concern with the interaction of the public, where people are farming and they have animals. One of the things that the plan talks about is that farmers would have to be willing to basically give up some animals because that would just be a natural occurrence. So I think there's a real concern, just that interaction, the human grizzly interaction, whether it be with people recreating or those who with their homes.
And before we got on the mic, you brought up a couple of points. I mean, number one, here in Chelan County, we have one of the most heavily hiked areas in the Northwest. It's called the Alpine Lakes Wilderness, and that's part of the recovery area. And even though those bears are being released in North Cascades National Park near Darrington, I learned earlier that those male grizzlies, they can wander up to 300 miles. So we could get grizzlies and certainly have some conflicts there. You're an orchardist by trade, and I understand that grizzlies can really cause some issues with your line of work as well.
Well, they would. We have a lot of issues with black bears, but black bears they're not the grizzly. I mean, a black bear is there and they're gone, and they're nocturnal. They don't look for conflict at all. In fact, it's tough for me to even, catch them at work. But if you have grizzlies and they're challenged, I mean, there is a real issue with their response.
Now, I know in the comments that you're making to the federal government in terms of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, National Park Service, one of the big questions you have is why? Why are they doing this?
Well, that was the question that I did ask the people here tonight. I mean, what is the impetus for this? And they indicated, well, there's been a recovery plan in place for the last 20 years, but I also pointed out that over 20 years ago, back in 1995, there was an RCW created that prohibited grizzly introduction on state lands. So, that I don't believe that sentiment has changed, and it is certainly consistent with where we as commissioners are today.
One other issue that you brought up when we talked earlier was the cost of doing this. Because if you're going to be reintroducing grizzlies into this ecosystem, it isn't going to be free. They're going to be transplanted. There's going to be the cost of getting them here, the cost of monitoring, the cost of administrating a program. Somebody's got to pay for that.
Well, you've clearly identified some of the issues as far as the cost. And, it's one thing to bring them in, but then it's another to maintain them. And in the projection that they have, we're talking literally millions of dollars. And where the federal government is today, where the state government is, I really would question that this is the best use of federal funds.
Do you anticipate that the reintroduction of these animals, and maybe you can look towards what's going on with wolves and other species, is this going to impact local governments and local government coffers?
I'm not sure exactly how it will impact us. I think, primarily they will be located initially up in those higher reaches that really don't have a lot of build out with the county infrastructure. But as you mentioned, the range that they can cover, it won't be long before it will have some impact on the county operations.
All right, folks. Well, there's a different opinion about the reintroduction of grizzlies from a local government level and a boots-on-the-ground level where they're actually going to be reintroduced. You have until March 14th to express your opinion. That's the open comment period regarding the reintroduction of grizzlies into the North Cascades ecosystem. Keith, thanks for expressing your opinion and sharing it with us on Northwestern Outdoors Radio.
Thank you, John.
Next up on Northwestern Outdoors Radio, you've heard some opinions about the reintroduction of grizzly bears into the North Cascades ecosystem. But now we're going to talk to somebody who makes his livelihood in North Cascades National Park. His name is Cliff Courtney. He is the owner of Stehekin Valley Ranch. He's been a long-time guide and outfitter and ranch owner in the southern portion of Cascades National Park, an area that is going to see some of these grizzly bears that they're reintroduced. Cliff, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Cliff, what's your opinion about this? You know, they want to reintroduce grizzlies. They say they kind of feel they have to because they're endangered and they have to be reintroduced.
Well, to start with, in my area, I don't speak for the whole North Cascades ecosystem. I speak for Stehekin and the surrounding area. We've never seen a grizzly bear in 5 generations. They weren't there when the Caucasian settlers first came in. Humans didn't force them out of Stehekin. And so I think they're using the wrong term to start with. I don't think it's reintroduction. I think it's introduction in the case of Stehekin. I believe it'll have a huge impact on my business. And, of course, my business is all about people's enjoyment of the North Cascades. We merely host what belongs to the public. And I believe it's going to be another reason for them not to come. And we certainly don't need that fear. I mean, how would you feel if your daughter was killed by a grizzly that was tagged and introduced into an area? I mean, that would make you quite bitter. And I think the fear of that is going to be just another thing that is in the way of the viability of our business. But worse than that, the bureaucracy is a lot more fearful to me than an encounter with the grizzly bear. I see what the government does to manage areas that have an encounter and the way they close roads and close areas and do different things. They always say at the onset they're not going to do that, but they always end up doing it. So I have very little trust that it won't have a huge impact on us.
So there's the fear, or perhaps we should say the perceived fear of an encounter with a grizzly and the potential outcome of that with humans. And there's the potential for limiting access to where your folks who come visit you recreate outdoors because of potential grizzly bear encounters.
Well, that's true. And the Park Service already is really tough on outfitters as far as making them do every little thing that becomes kind of a trendy. And it's really hard to run a business anymore in an area administered by the National Park Service because of that. And so there's not going to be just the fear or perceived fear, as you put it, but you're also going to have real things like special equipment and special closed areas and limited permits and limited access. And so it's going to be a real impact. It's not just perceived, I don't believe.
All right. Well, there's another opinion from a man who lives at Ground Zero where these bears are going to be introduced. Cliff, always a pleasure to talk to you. And, folks, I've been up to Stehekin before, and Stehekin Valley Ranch is a great destination. Check it out.
Thank you.
As you can see, there's a lot of interesting opinions about grizzly bears and whether they should be introduced into the North Cascades ecosystem. Moving on to something else, I want to tell you about some auctions taking place that are going to benefit a great organization called Youth Outdoors Unlimited. This organization started off in Moses Lake. A husband and wife decided they were going to form a group that is dedicated to taking kids on guided hunting and fishing adventures who have life-threatening illnesses or physical disabilities. It's truly the hunt of a lifetime for these kids. They're a nonprofit organization. They really operate on a shoestring, so they count on auctions to raise funds to give them the money they need to take these kids out on adventures. And they are getting more and more kids every year. Let me tell you where some of these auctions are taking place. The first one's in their hometown of Moses Lake. It's going to be Saturday, March 4th. Doors open at 4:30. It's going to be at the Best Western Lakefront Inn. There'll be a live and silent auction along with specialty raffles. And happy to say we were able to donate a Camp Chef Mountaineer camp stove that's going to be at one of their auctions. It's a great camp stove that I think folks are going to love. The next auction's taking place in Yakima at the Yakima Valley Hotel and Conference Center. That one's going to be Saturday, March 25th. Again, the doors open at 4:30 p.m. And there'll be not only good food, but again, lots of opportunities to bid on and win prizes. Following that is the first annual Youth Outdoors Unlimited Spokane auction. This one's going to take place at the Red Lion Spokane at the park, April 8th 4:30 p.m. is the time and place where you want to be there. Looks to be a very good time in a big city. And finally, on April 15th, that's also a Saturday, the 3rd annual Youth Outdoors Unlimited Western Washington auctions taking place at the McGavick Conference Center in Lakewood, Washington. The time again, 4:30 p.m. Join them for dinner, join them for the live and silent auction and specialty raffles, and help this great 501c3 corporation take more kids out hunting. Kids with serious physical disabilities or life-threatening illnesses. You're really going to make a difference in these kids' lives. You want to find out more about the organization? Go to their website, youthoutdoorsu.org. That's youthoutdoorsu.org. Stick around. Your Sportsman's Warehouse Trivia Question of the Week and your chance to win a $25 gift card from Sportsman's Warehouse is coming up in just a couple minutes.
Leupold has been building optics in Oregon since 1907, and Leupold binoculars bring excellent optical performance and modern styling to the serious outdoorsman. Whether you're a boater, birder, backpacker, or hunter, Leupold's state-of-the-art binocular lines are sure to fit your needs. From the Poro Prism Yosemite series to the top-of-the-line McKinley Roof Prism, Leupold has a product that is perfect for the passions you pursue. Visit Leupold.com or your local Cabela's, Bi-Mart, or Sportsman's Warehouse to see the full line of Leupold optics.
Sportsman's Warehouse is America's premier outfitter and has the quality gear you need for hunting, fishing, camping, and more. Our knowledgeable and friendly staff will help you find the right product so you get the most out of your time in the field or on the water. In addition to stocking superior clothing and outdoor equipment, we offer in-store events and seminars so you can enjoy a successful adventure. With over 70 stores located in the United States, it's easy to find a Sportsman's Warehouse store near you. Find out more at sportsmanswarehouse.com.
One more time this week for Northwestern Outdoors Radio with John Cruz.
Welcome back to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. Let's run through some upcoming events together, and we need to talk about some sportsman shows. As a matter of fact, this weekend, if you are in Wenatchee, be sure to stop by the Town Toyota Center Friday through Sunday. It's the Wenatchee Valley Sportsman Show. We've got a booth there, and if you drop by, sign up for your chance to win a $100 gift certificate from Max Lure Company and a Striker backcountry camp stove from Camp Chef. This is an awesome camp stove, trust me, and that gift certificate will buy you a lot of lures that'll catch walleye, trout, or kokanee this year. Another show going on this weekend is taking place in Helena. It's the Great Rocky Show. It's also going on Friday through Sunday. Should be a lot of fun for our listeners in Anaconda and Great Falls to head to. And then next week, we are going to be at the Central Oregon Sportsman Show. It's at the Deschutes County Fairgrounds in Redmond, taking place Thursday, March 2nd through Sunday, March 5th. We'll have our booth there again with your chances to win those prizes we just told you about. I really enjoy this show, and I enjoy recreating outdoors before the show. Especially love to go to Smith Rock State Park for an early morning hike when that sun is just shining on those rocks, and you hike around, see the wildlife, watch the rock climbers. Always a good time. Moving on to March 10th through the 12th, the Great Rocky Show is making a stop at the Adams Center in Missoula. And then March 17th to the 20th, the Bighorn Show takes place at the Interstate Fairgrounds. Always well attended, always lots of activities for the kids. Highly recommend going again March 17th through the 20th for the Bighorn Show. And now it's time for your trivia question of the week. And with grizzly bears in mind, we're going to ask you this. Meriwether Lewis and William Clark are the explorers who gave the name grizzly to the large species of bear they encountered during their famous expedition. And in 1815, a naturalist gave the bear its Latin name, which some would say is horrible, but others would say roughly translates into terrifying bear. Do you know the Latin name given for the species known as the grizzly bear? If you do, go to our Facebook page at Northwestern Outdoors Radio, like our page, and give us your answer on the post we've got there with the question. Or if you prefer, go to our website at northwesternoutdoors.com. Go to the Contact Us page and give us your answer there. One lucky person who knows the Latin name given for the species known as the grizzly bear is going to win a $25 gift card. We give one away every week from Sportsman's Warehouse. While you're on the web, make sure you go to our sister show website at americaoutdoorsradio.com. We keep adding stations. We're up to 35 stations now. Go ahead and look for one near you. And if there's not one near you, Call your station. Let them know you want to hear America Outdoors Radio during the weekends. Might help us get on there. Another place to hear our show is WRVO Radio. That website is RenoViolaOutdoors.com. It's an internet station dedicated to outdoors programming 7 days a week. It's got over 30 outdoor shows. Both of our shows are on there. We're proud to be there, and I hope you'll give it a listen, not just for our shows, but for the other great shows coming at you, covering the outdoor scene from all over North America. That's all for this week. I'm hoping winter is going to be releasing its icy grip sooner than later because, I don't know about you, I'm ready for spring, ready for some early trout fishing, ready for some hiking, ready for a whole lot more, and especially some warm sunshine. Until next time, take care, God bless, and make it a point to spend some time outdoors.